Hi guys, it's me, Ellie again. Thank you for watching this video. Today I want to talk about divine blueprints and divine plans. Now, I'm sure you've heard of things like everything happens for a reason. God has a plan in store for all of us. There is a plan in motion. Things are all pre-written in history and pre-written in the divine plans and blueprints and stuff and things like that. So, and I'm also sure you've heard of the term Akashic Records. So the Akashic Records really are essentially just divine blueprints, and even touch a little bit on the divine plan for our soul. Now, this so-called digital library that contains all divine blueprints and divine plans of all souls does exist in the astral planes, but it's not where people think it is. I'm not going to disclose where it is, but it at one point was stored in the Pleiades, specifically Maya, who interestingly enough was the elder of the Pleiades. But and people, they say that it's in the astral planes in the Pleiades, but it's not there anymore. It's a long story as to why that is, and it relates to evil beings being given access and things like that. And someone did say something about, I think her name was Akemi, said stuff about how, there are a lot of corrupt Pleiadians and stuff, and unfortunately that is correct, and that's why a lot of them, or actually all those corrupt Pleiadians, were sent to Earth to, either redemption or you don't get it. But I'm not here to talk about what doesn't happen to souls that have not been redeemed or will not be redeemed. I'm here to talk about divine blueprints and divine plans. So, first, I'm going to talk about divine blueprints, which are often referred to as the Akashic Records, and these are detailed records that are stored in a digital library in the spiritual astral planes and that are related to a soul's journey. And these contain all details relating to every possible choice that could be made that determine the direction a soul heads on for their journey towards their soul's destination. And this includes things like dates, times, the cars we choose to drive, the clothes we choose to wear, the people we meet or just run into even, the pets we own, movies and TV shows we choose to watch, what we choose to eat and drink, choosing left, right, straight, stuff like that. Just about every soul has about 100 different versions of their soul's journey, aka divine blueprints. Okay, now I'm sure this may not come as too much of a surprise to you, but not everyone can access the real divine blueprints, unlike what people that are trying to sell services of being able to access Akashic Records, being a so-called divine blueprint healer, and other things like that. And I always found it very iffy when people would say things like they saw a bunch of lights, they had a lot of warm, fuzzy feelings during their Akashic Record sessions, and they feel like everything makes sense for their past lives and how it's impacting their current lifetime today, and stuff like that. I'm going to be honest. I mean, unless you did something really bad in a past lifetime and whatnot, there's really not a whole lot of value in diving into your past lifetimes, because ultimately you should be focusing more on this lifetime, especially if you have some redemption work to do, or if you don't, well, that's on you, not on me. But something that caught my eye when I was reading up on divine blueprints, so I get a lot of my information from my pendulum, and using a printable ABC chart. And yes, they do move on their own. And I've gotten a lot of interesting information from deities, fae, and other benevolent entities. So I was reading up on some stuff about divine blueprints and whatever, and people were talking about how there are some people who struggle to access someone else's records, namely a client, and they think it has something to do with trauma and the person's resisting or something else. What's really going on is the real divine blueprinters are actually protecting this person's blueprints. And this is their way of saying, stop trying to hack this person's records. And I'm going to say this, a lot of the so-called healers and people that can read Akashic Records and they charge you money for it and things like that, they're actually incarnated demons. And they are given limited access to these things, mostly just so, like, other incarnated demons and stuff, other evil souls basically are not allowed access to real information. So these entities, yes, entities can and do lie, which is why we should question everything you see, feel, and hear. They feed them BS, to put it frankly. And, frankly, there's a reason why it's a big fat lie that, everyone can access their divine blueprints and whatever. You just look up this method and this and that, and it's like, nope. There's a reason why not everyone can access the real divine blueprints, and there's plenty of good reasons for it. And frankly, if you're not given access to it, or not allowed to, sorry, there's a reason for it. Get over it. Anyway, so you probably won't like what I have to say in some respects, but it is what it is. Facts are facts. Now, I want to talk about divine plans. Now, the divine plans are a soul's ultimate destination in this lifetime, or if you are going on after this lifetime, soul's destination after this lifetime. So basically, with divine blueprints, they are essentially possible circumstances for which what I call landmark events will happen on a soul's journey will occur. Ultimately, a lot of the choices we make and, whatever version of the blueprints occur, they can either delay these events, change change the circumstances of these events, or just make it so they occur sooner. Now, the things that I call landmark events are like milestone events, like it could be marriage, it could be divorce, having children, getting arrested, going through abuse as a child or even in adulthood, car accidents, death of a close friend or close friends or a relative or something, relocation, being raped even, or some other big event that has a significant impact on our growth spiritually and just has an overall big impact on our well-being. The small choices we make every day do have an impact on when these landmark events occur, not if they will occur. Now, I will say this, there are some evil beings, namely demons, and there are incarnations that have done things to what I call tamper with other people's divine blueprints. Now, the real divine blueprinters have fixed the so-called tampers, but I will say this, they call these tampers only for a select few souls, and that is dependent on the status of that person's soul. Yes, it is a thing where some souls are more royal than others. Sorry to, burst some of people's bubbles, but we're not all made equal. It just is what it is. When it comes to divine plans, these do always unfold at some point. Nothing is written when it comes to which version of the divine blueprints will occur, however. In the movie The Mummy Returns, our Death Bay at one point says, "Only the journey is written, not the destination." He actually has this backwards. It's really the destination that is written, and it's the journey is what's up in the air. Now, I was saying earlier how not everyone is allowed access to the real divine blueprints and the real divine plans. And I also mentioned earlier how people have like about 100 different versions of their divine blueprints that have impact on, the divine plan to an extent. And the question that a lot of people have, and this is why I think there's a lot of skepticism about things like Akashic Records and, whether there's divine plans and blueprints and, whether things are actually written in stone and, things like that. If the electronic records truly contain divine blueprints and divine plans of all souls, why is it no one can predict the future with 100% certainty every time, but only tidbits here and there? And that's because it is God's will, which, by the way, God is a male and a female, two separate beings, and they do physically exist, but just, that's a long story there. It is God's will to only let the true prophet access to the records, the true prophet on earth, as they will always follow the divine plans and not the ones created by demons and their evil as all get out incarnations. I will say this, the true prophet won't be told everything, or they will be told things, but they only tell certain things. Because the people that are meant to get the message, they will get the message at one way or another. The ones that are not meant to get it, well, they just won't get it. So I do have a pretty wild story that, in my opinion, does prove to me that divine blueprints exist, divine plans are real, my guides are divine blueprinters, and they have all access to all of this stuff. So this past summer, I want to say it was July or something, I was looking up movies on Netflix. I had my ABC printable chart and my pendulum, and I was looking at this movie, Wild Things, because I've never seen it, even though it's been out for years, and I was kind of curious about it, because I remember my parents had this movie sitting on their VHS shelf. One of my guides, True Vixie, who is the king of Atlantis, he said to me, "Elliot, you are absolutely, under no circumstance, allowed to watch this movie." And I said, "Why not?" And he said that it's demonic shit, it's not a good influence, and it would mean bad news for you. And I was like, okay. Several months before that, my car broke down. And the engine went kaplunk. It died. It was a Hyundai, and Hyundai refused to honor the recall because I didn't have some kind of code on the engine and the computer and whatever. It was pretty stupid in my book, but again, everything happens for a reason, right? So my higher self, who is Hela, the Nordic goddess of death, who is the All-Mother, head of the astral planes, the All-Mother, she's the female god, period. And that's a different topic. She told me when I was car shopping, I'm to buy this red Acura MDX specifically, and I am under no circumstance to buy any other vehicle. And I bought this through my brother's dealership, and they worked up a deal, and I was able to manage financing for this car, and I am pretty satisfied with my car, but that's not the point of the story. So I bought this car, and I was instructed to never watch the movie Wild Things. Two completely unrelated things, right? Well, I woke up the day before this past Christmas Eve feeling absolutely awful. I didn't have a bad dream or anything. I didn't go to bed in a bad mood. I wasn't like on my monthly cycle, which impacts us ladies. I didn't have any of that going on. Like, there was just no logical explanation as to why I woke up with awful anxiety and why I woke up with really bad feelings about what was going to happen on this day. I took my son to work with me because he was on Christmas break. I went and did my thing. It was a half day because Fridays are the short days. And he wanted to go to the mall to take pictures with Santa. And I was like, all right, fine, whatever. Let's do this. It's, last minute stuff. I mean, that's just what what us parents do sometimes, It's what I do a lot. Anywho, so I am driving to this mall, and my feelings of anxiety just get worse and worse as I'm getting closer to the mall. Like, I see a lot of traffic, and that drives me insane, and I'm just like, okay, I don't like this. I'm not liking what's going on. I'm getting anxious. Like, it's not a good thing to have this kind of panic when you're driving, but I'm like, you got to do what you got to do, try to keep children happy, and he doesn't rule everything, by the way, but I will give him this small little thing. So I pull up onto the exit by the mall, and I see a red van with a license plate that said WLDTHGS, Wild Things. A red van. Interesting coincidence, because I was told to specifically buy a red SUV that I'm now driving. And then I pull into the mall parking lot, and the whole 20 minutes I spent looking really hard for a freaking parking lot spot. I eventually decide, all right, I'm going to go to a different part of the mall, and I'm going to see if I can find a spot in a different section. And I was about to go on this road that's in the parking lot, because it's mall, big parking lot, and the way this parking lot was designed, like, the road was really curved, and it was really hard to see cars coming at times. And there was a car and I just felt my car just stop. Like, I pressed on the brakes, but it felt like the car was braking a little bit harder than it usually would, based on how much pressure I was putting on the brakes. So I end up almost getting sideswiped. Like, this car was just flying, like, going way too fast. And I look up, and I'm like, holy crap. Like, I felt like my car was stopped harder right before that car showed up. And I just felt so on edge after that. I finally find a parking spot, and I take my son aside to get photos taken with Santa. And of course, there's like a really long wait. It's like 2 hours, and my ex-boyfriend and I get into an argument because he I mean, we were meeting at the mall because he was going to take out our son to the game the next morning anyway. So, we were meeting up there, and, he was going to take Atlas with him and, go to the mall afterwards. Or go home afterwards with him, and, they were going to go to the football game in the morning. Anyway, so we get into an argument because I tell him that I can't stay for these pictures. And I told him I just felt really bad and things like that. And I said, I can't stay here. I cannot stay for these photos. I cannot stay here. I'm really sorry, but I just got to leave. And we get into this big old argument, and he's like, oh, you should be here for the photos and this and that. But he got over it. I went home, picked up my pendulum right when I get home, and I said, what in the world happened? True Vixie, who is the one that told me to not watch Wild Things, and my higher self, Hella, the All-Mother, said, I told you to buy this red car specifically. And I said, what in the world happened? And they said, we told you to buy this car and to not watch this movie, because if you did not buy that car and if you watched that movie, this would have been the day you died. You would have gotten sideswiped by that car. And Atlas, your son, would have ended up in a mental institution because he would have been so traumatized living through watching his mother die in that car accident. This, to me, proves that divine blueprints and divine plans are real. And there are things that happen that they happen for a reason. And it seems like two completely unrelated things can actually be 100% related. And that was a very powerful example that this is 100% the case, as I've always suspected. Every small choice we make does have an impact. And this particular car accident was a tamper that a demon came up with to try to end my life earlier than it should. And, there are other people that I know and have come across that have had tampers that, I've worked with to prevent. Like, I had to give my best friend a tarot card reading to basically say, hey, don't see this girl again. If you do, like, her crazy ex-boyfriend will kill you, which is another topic. But the point is, divine blueprints are basically just possible ways that we end up on our ultimate destination, which is the divine plan. Now, everyone is allowed access to this information, and that's just the truth. I mean, you may not like it. Only certain souls are allowed access to it, and it depends on the soul's status or class, if you will. And yes, this is a thing. Like it or not, it's a thing. Some souls just are more royal than others. And that's if you have one. That's if you have a higher self. I mean, you can have a higher self and you can have a demon, or a little bit of both. So-called inner demons. Anyways, so thank you for watching this video. I hope it was insightful. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you learned something new. Thank you. I hope you have a good rest of your day or night. Have a good one. Goodbye.